Hello everyone, it's the Axle Shifter here, and I am back with the next Multiverse Wars episode number 77. And today, we're going to be going over two cartoon antagonists that may seem small, but are more powerful than you think. Kikimora from the Owl House versus Gideon Gleeful from Gravity Falls. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time and get straight into this matchup and see who would win. Let's go. Kikimora is an antagonist from the Owl House. She is the former assistant of Emperor Bellows, who delivered his orders of other subordinates, or outside of the Emperor's coven. And after being tricked by Bellows, Kikimora turns on him after finally having enough of his abusive and demeaning nature, and also helped out King to reach out to the Collector in order to subdue Bellows and stop the draining spell. And after the Day of Unity, she attempts to restructure the Boiling Isles with her on top. And after Bellows' defeat, she takes up work in construction. But now let's talk about her powers, abilities, and feats. In terms of strength, AP, and durability, Kikimora is able to severely damage buildings and magical constructs. Her fire blast and her seagull magic can also incapacitate other trained witches or characters. Plus, her war machine mech is strong enough to destroy barricades and can even fight off other characters like Luz or Amity. So in terms of her strength and durability, it should be around city blocks to possibly large building level. I say this because Kiki can fight Luz in the later seasons and earlier on, but she's still kind of skills below her technically, especially towards the end of the series, so she's not as powerful like the top tiers like the Collector, obviously, but she's still pretty strong in her own right. As for speed, she can react to guild spells and can keep up with Hunter and Luz, and both these characters scale to supersonic combat and reaction speeds at their peak, which Kikimora should scale to. Now, as for intelligence, she is a master manipulator and is highly experienced strategist and enforcer as well, as she uses deception, sabotage, and disguise pretty effectively. She's also fluent in propaganda and hierarchical politics, and diverse in pretty much infiltration plans post-Bellows to control the Hex side via Bosca, so she's pretty smart and crafty. Next is her hacks, abilities, and gear, whatever she has else other than her strength and speed. She, of course, has magic, and also via a magical bile sac attached to her heart. Then there's her fire projection. As an offensive weapon, she can just fire purple bolts of magic from her hands. Then there's Coven Sealing, where she can use a finger on her head, then can use this seagull on her witch's arms to seal them for a form of stasis to stifle their magic if they have it. She also has her dragon named Princess, which is capable of fast flight as well as tracking people, and can also of course act as combat support. Then there's her Abomatron, the robot mech suit which I discussed before, which has the power to extend its arms much like a normal abomination pretty much. Then there's also a blaster arm, a jetpack, a shield, and a bubble, which can allow her to pretty much shield themselves like the shield. But despite all of this going on, and despite the fact she has really high stamina, she still has her weaknesses. For one, it's been shown that she can be pretty easily intimidated, especially when alone or caught off guard. Plus, she is emotionally unstable, which could end pretty badly for her when she's not at her A game. But overall, she may not be ruining the Boiling Isles, but she sure left some scorch marks on it, that's for sure. Gideon Charles Gleeful, better known as Lil Gideon, is the fraudulent child psychic from the show Gravity Falls, whose hunger for ultimate power motivates him to manipulate and intimidate others around him to give him what he wants, and is also the sworn enemy of Stan Pines. Gideon can fight and harm Dipper Pines, who is comparable to Mono Taurus, who can casually smash large boulders, and Dipper can deal damage to Rumble McSkirmish, who easily punched an air vent out of his hinges, as well as surviving a massive explosion that caused from his security droid, and albeit barely survived. He also endured Rumble Skirmish's combo attack and survived an attack that obliterated a tower, and least lasting surviving multiple falls. All of this Gideon should scale to, but his attack potency and durability scales higher thanks to his robot mech suit called the Gideon bot, which caused a small landslide with a single punch, and has also been shown capable of destroying and crushing cars. So I think building level is pretty fair. And as for speed, he once moved at a comparable speed with the beam of a flashlight, and the average speed of a flashlight beam was around 300 kilometers per second, and he again scales to Dipper, who once redirected a beam of light, and can keep up with Multiverse, who outran several darts, all of which Gideon scales to again. So he's around superhuman in terms of travel speed, and around relativistic combat and reaction speed wise. And this is even higher with the Gideon bot because he can keep up with a speeding bus. Next is intelligence, and despite his age implying otherwise, Gideon is actually a highly formidable opponent with Stanley Pines, considering Gideon his greatest enemy, and plus being outsmarted by him twice. He even outsmarted Dipper Pines and almost defeated the Pines family had it not been for an incorrect assumption. He was also a proficient manipulator, managing to manipulate the entire town of Gravity Falls to think he was a real psychic, and the fact that he had good intentions and that Stanley was a fraud. Next is his gear, and it's way more than you might think because he has a mystic amulet which can influence people's actions and influencing objects as well around the user, like using telekinesis for example, which can also lift and manipulate any object too, as well as any person. It can also be used to force people to do things against their will. And then there's Journal 2, which has possession incantation, which allows the user to possess someone or at least control another person, but you can only use this once. Then there's Wizard Crashing, which can banish any or neutralize any magical threats. Plus, Gideon was able to dancing for Bill Cipher for a very long time. It caught in weird beginnings, so his stamina is pretty high. But now we have his weaknesses. For one, he can't use his telekinesis powers without his amulet, and he also can't use many of the spells without Journal 2, and his spell possession is only one-time use. Also, if an opponent can target Gideon himself by breaking through the Gideon bot's eyes, then the robot can become far more unstable. But overall, this 10-year-old kid who somehow looks old as shit could still be a highly dangerous threat. But now that we've discussed both characters, it's time we talk about who would win this fight. And these two do have a lot of gear and stuff up their sleeves to help them out, and they are really strong. But in the end, I would have to say that Gideon would be the winner of this fight, and I will tell you why. Well, firstly, both of them have pretty similar stats in terms of AP and durability, with Kikimora holding a slight edge over Gideon, but then again, it's not like Gideon can't hurt her at all. Now, as for speed, yeah, Gideon takes this one pretty easily because he has relativistic scaling while Kiki only has supersonic thanks to scaling to other characters in the whole house. And this would make him over 29,000 times faster than Kikimora. It would make it nearly impossible for Kiki to react to his attacks or even counter ones of his own anyway, or his other stuff. And when it comes to intelligence, however, these two are actually pretty evenly matched. Kikimora is a highly manipulative strategist who executed post-Bellows' political maneuvers and infiltration schemes, and Gideon, meanwhile, is also a master manipulator who would trick the entire town of Gravity Falls into repeatedly outsmarting the Pines family, of course, and nearly took over the Mystery Shack using his cunning and social influence. But Gideon's ability to manipulate a position of power weaknesses does give him a slight edge when it comes to intelligence or manipulation. And while Kikimora is better trained and has a more balanced loadout like her mech and her dragon, as well as her firebolt and spells, Gideon's telekinesis and mind control, as well as the possession spell, would be simply way more dangerous, in my opinion anyways, especially when you factor in his speed. He also doesn't really need to match her blow for blow in a physical sense. He could pretty much just rip the Abomatron apart, or just pin Kikimora down with a TK, or at least control her outright before she can retaliate. Plus, the Gideon bot is much bigger. So, in the end, while this fight isn't a stomp, his superior speed, hacks, and gear would give Gideon the win more times than not. The winner is Gideon Gleeful.